Welcome to the Background Noise Podcast, episode 4, where we are talking about Venom this week. Let There Be Carnage just came out on October 1st, and we are now doing this recording on the 3rd, having all gone to see it over the weekend. So we're going to give our thoughts on that and our thoughts on the original film, and then give our just thoughts on the sequel as well.
Yeah, I think we're going to start off by retroactively discussing the first one, then we'll get everyone can get caught up, and then a spoiler-free review of the second one, and then actually jump into spoilers for the second one. So you guys have time. You have time to listen to this podcast on the way to the movie theater while you're watching it, and then you get to watch it, and then you get to hear our thoughts afterwards on the movie you just watched. That's the appropriate way to listen to this podcast.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
For the complete experience.
Who are we, really?
Didn't we answer that in the Matrix episode?
No, but we didn't this episode. We got to introduce ourselves again.
Oh,
fine. Well, I'm Jack, and these are two other people.
And other Joe. Boo! Scared you. That's the only reason I wanted to do that, because it's October.
Oh, gosh.
And we are starting the official Spooky Month Jamboree with this talk here.
Yes, Venom, a noted horror movie.
Indeed.
Yes.
Movie.
Noted romantic comedy horror superhero. I don't know. Yeah.
Is it a romantic comedy?
I don't know. This is the comedy through Venom and Eddie, and the romance through Cassidy and his lady, I guess.
Well, that's Venom 2.
Oh, no, the first one. Yeah, the first one's, I don't know what that is.
Well, I don't think the people who made the first one, that's probably where we should start. I don't think that the people who made the first Venom knew what they were doing. It's one of those things. It is simultaneously a work of art and a train wreck. Like, somehow it's both of those things at the same time. It is a actively burning dumpster fire that is also a piece of art because of the way it's burning.
It's one of those films where it's not a great film. There's so many problems with it.
Yeah.
But it is very much a fun film, and that is highlighted. You'll see both this film and the sequel is highlighted by Tom Hardy's performance. Him as Eddie interacting with the symbiote is hysterical. Yeah. And I could watch them do it for hours in so many different situations. It's a treat to watch, and it's, in my opinion, probably the highlight of both films and probably the high point. But just speaking on the first film, Ruben Fleischer was the guy who directed both Zombieland films, so he knows what he's doing. He is a good director. I feel like a lot of this was more studio intervention than not having the people who knew what they were doing, because you had Ruben Fleischer was directing, you had another guy come in, I can't remember his name, but it's a pretty well-known screenwriter, came in to work on the script and cinematography for it. And even Tom Hardy, he was going all out, but you had, I think, a lot of studio interference, and that's why this film is sort of, while it is a fun mess, it is still a mess.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's, I'll bring this up because it'll be relevant when we do our 10-point score reviews.
Mm-hmm.
I have a score system. There's the normal scoring system, 0 to 10. A 5 is a perfectly functional movie, and then anything below that is a movie with more problems than good things, and anything above a 5 is a movie that has more good than bad. But I also have a negative system, which is for ironic enjoyment. So that's like the quintessential movie that is an ironic enjoyment movie is like Sharknado, something that's not good, but it's fun to watch with a group of friends where you're just going to make fun of it and enjoy having fun watching this dumb movie. And I would place both of the Venom movies solidly on the negative side. Not that like negative doesn't mean bad. 0 is bad. 0 is a movie that has no value whatsoever. There's no reason to watch it. A high-scoring negative movie is something that I would recommend watching because it's ridiculous. Not because it's good, but because it's ridiculous. And I think that's exactly where these movies are operating.
We need to
Even
start
more
sending
so.
out charts with this, or what is it? Digital copies of this chart, because it truly is the best way to look at things like this.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, we'll start posting. It's a U chart. It's a U-shaped chart. So like 0 is the point at the center of the U, and then you arc up on both sides. And we'll just plot movies on going back and forth as we review things.
There you go.
Positive 10, Godfather. Negative 10,
The Room is is a negative 10 movie. Like
yeah, that
terrible
makes sense.
movie. That's just But I wouldn't put this here. I wouldn't put it quite at a negative 10. But I do think I am a person. I've recently discovered this about myself in my movie watching experience and in my just normal like YouTube media consumption experience. I enjoy watching things that are ridiculous and crazy, and it's chaos that is being pushed in a direction. Like it's just a churning ball of nonsense that's going in a direction towards some goal, and that's what both of these movies are. Like they have an endpoint. They both have an endpoint that they're arriving to. The first one has the endpoint of giant battle on the edge of a spaceship between two alien things, and then the second one has an endpoint that it's heading to, which we will talk about in the spoiler review section. Like they both have this endpoint that they're going to, but it's
Spoilers,
just a ball
it's a
of
giant battle.
it's a giant battle between two alien symbiote things. Like we know that's what's happening, but like it's this churning ball of nonsense that's moving in that direction, and it's fascinating to watch, and it's hilarious to watch. Is I think the best way of describing these movies. If you're not enjoying it because it's a competently put together plot. You're not enjoying it because it's got like it's going to change the way you think about the world. You're not watching it because it's a cinematic masterpiece we have to enjoy because the Oscars need something new to discuss and give awards to. No, you're watching it because it's insane nonsense that is just fun to watch. That's the retrospective review on 1, and also like a good portion of a review on 2.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're done here. Thanks for visiting, guys.
Did you have anything you wanted to add to your review of the first one, Joseph, before we jump on the second one?
Well, really, I just got to say, kind of the same thing. Talking about, it's hilarious to watch, and the first one is like, yeah, it is, but unfortunately, it's unintentional hilarity. Of course, there's like the the funny moments sometimes with Venom and Eddie, the lobster scene. That's just people can't help but think of that, and it's just like, hey, that's good, but that felt more at home in this one, and then you got like the whole the whole thing in the first one is like just the serious. It's like it's partially like I don't know, like a I don't want to say a journalism movie because there's a better term for it. Like, because he's a journalist. He's trying to break this big case of like, what is it? Big corruption and unethical experimentation. It's like, okay, that's cool. When do I see the big guy bite off people's heads?
So I was trying to think when I rewatched. I think we all rewatched the first one in preparation for watching the second because it's been. Understandably, it's been 3 years since the last time I watched this because I haven't seen it since it came out. And I was trying to figure out like what genre of movie the first one is.
Exactly.
Because there's a little bit, there's elements of it that are like kind of supposed to be horror. Like when it opens with the scene of the symbiote that has escaped the spaceship and is like taking over people trying to get to California. And there's also the scene where Eddie has first got the symbiote and he's trying to figure out what's going on, and that's kind of played for like a horror. Like when he keeps seeing Venom, but they haven't fully acclimated to each other yet. That's kind of played like horror. And so I was trying to figure out like what genre is this, because it's also, in addition to horror, it's got a bunch of comedy bits. It's got intentional comedy bits and it's got accidental comedy bits. And there is like, it's also an action movie because it ends with a big punch up between two CGI monster things. And I was like, okay, so what genre is this? And I think it's a kaiju movie. I think the best representation of this movie is a kaiju movie. No, it's not. We're not talking about Godzilla and King Kong, which are kaijus that are, 10 times human size and can like hit each other with skyscrapers. But it's a kaiju movie in the sense that the monsters are representative of. They're representative of something that I think that I don't know if I don't. So here's the thing. I don't know if the directors or writers actually had ideas in mind, and then they were trying to bring them out, and the movie is a creation of that, or if there was just stuff rattling around in the back of their head that happened to get spilled out onto the page and they went with it. And I think it's the second one. I think it's just that they had stuff going on in the back of their head.
Sounds like Sony's MO.
Yeah, well, that's fair. But a kaiju movie is, you have an existential fear about something that you don't know how to express in words, and so the kaiju monster is a representation of that existential fear. And I think that's what's happening with the first movie. I think that's what Venom is, because it's almost like it's a
possession story almost.
Yes, yeah, it's a fear of loss of identity, right? Because Venom can take over the host, or the symbiotes in general, they can just take over the host and you lose your identity. But there's a thing that we need to fight. There are things that we need to overcome, and that requires us to work together. Requires us to tap into this power that's beyond us ourselves. But doing so risks losing yourself. And so I think that's the existential threat that is implicit in there. Now, again, I don't think this was intentional. I do not give the director or the writer or anyone credit for intentionally doing this. But I do think that this is one of the things of like, am I reading too much into this? Is this really just a stupid action comedy movie that's just a bunch of monsters punching each other, or is there more to it? And my brain wants there to be more to it to make it have been worth my time.
I think you want this to be an Oscar winner.
I think you're giving it a lot more credit. I mean, I get you're saying it's like, oh, yeah, you're giving it a lot more credit than it deserves. I feel like they were trying to pull. It's like, oh yeah, well the MCU's all campy and funny and stuff. Well, we've got Venom. We can be spooky, but not too spooky. We're PG-13. Yeah. Come on. I mean, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna actually show him eating some guy's head off? No, come on. We got to sell action figures.
Yeah, that's true. All right, those were deep thoughts with Joe.
Deep thoughts one with Joe.
Deep thoughts with Joe on Venom 1 is I think it's kind of a kaiju movie.
For me, I mean, I didn't think about it that deeply, but yeah, I think it's more of a comedy than anything else. But I think it's probably just like an action comedy. That's sort of my take on it. I think it leans more in the humor than most superhero films or even Marvel films did in particular. And I thought it was surprisingly fun. Like going into it, I didn't have a lot of high expectations. I didn't really have anything. I knew who Venom was. I read some comics, seen some things here and there. There was Spider-Man 3, which doesn't even count. But seeing this take on Venom was refreshingly enjoyable watching the first one. And so their relationship, again, I thought was such a highlight, and Tom Hardy nailed it. When people talk about Tom Hardy's best roles, I don't think enough people talk about this, because he really gave a lot in this. And you could tell he's having a ton of fun with it, but I feel like he really put a lot of effort into this role, and I feel like it really shows.
The fact that it's so different too, I feel like, is why it stands out so much. It's like, oh yeah, you look at like, I mean, Tom Hardy, he's the typical action movie protagonist. It's just sort of like, he's the tough stoic guy. He's Mad Max. I don't know a lot of Tom Hardy stuff, but I know he's kind of, oh yeah, he's Bane. He's like he's the big tough guy. And then then he's this scrawny kind of almost weaselly reporter who gets possessed by an alien and is just completely out of left field, and he treats it like that. And again, I feel like it's sort of like, it feels like one of those performances where it's like, okay, Tom, I want you to go all out, and then they weren't ready for him to go all out. And just like, okay, that's good. Do we tell him to back off? No, this is gold.
Yeah.
I guess one of the other kind of things about Venom at first is, in addition to like the conflicting tones that made it all distracting and stuff. They tried to push the whole these guys, the symbiotes. He's a symbiote. He bonds with Eddie. He makes him like really cool, but they're not quite compatible, or like something in the first part, because they're fighting for control and all. And then when the SWAT team shows up, they're like old
Yeah.
a buddy cop duo. They're like, oh yeah, we'll take him down. It's just like, yeah, you were trying to get to this part. Like, again, Joe, it's like the it's like the kaiju action scene. It's like you were trying to get to this part, and everything else between then was just throw it in there and it works.
Yeah,
that's about
it is. The plot of the movie is a thread that connects you between action set pieces. Like that's the plot. That is ultimately, actually, I think what was happening. I can deep thought out some stuff about like what's going on there and try to put more stuff in there that actually is. But ultimately, the plot of the movie is what can we use as the minimum amount of effort to get us from fight scene to fight scene to fight scene, and have it not be so incoherent that you just walk out of the theater.
Yeah, get it passable. Give us McDonald's. Don't try to serve us McDonald's at a steakhouse. Just give us McDonald's.
Yeah, I drove up to the drive-thru. I just need a burger to get me through the day. I don't care if it's any good. I just need some protein.
I think the most unbelievable thing about that film, above all the symbiotes and all of that, is the fact that Michelle Williams' character even likes Eddie Brock. I don't get that
again, this
relationship
complete
even works.
weasel.
Okay,
of like a dude.
Well, here's the thing. I thought she was being unreasonably harsh on him, because she talks all the time about how he's a selfish character, but like everything that we see from him is him being selfless and him doing what he believes is the right thing. Like he gives away money to the homeless lady, and he's helping out the convenience store lady and things like that.
I think this is all after that happens, though. I want to say
Right,
all that stuff.
Is this in the second movie, or
this is the first?
We're still not talking about the first movie, but like
I was gonna say I watched this movie just a few days ago and I can't remember. Oh god!
Like I didn't get the impression. The key has a lot of problems. The character has a lot of personal issues that he needs to figure out. But I didn't get the impression that he was doing it because he was a selfish jerk who was using people. He was a person who, like, he wanted to do what he thought was the right thing, and he wasn't concerned if other people got hurt in the process, because he was looking at this higher picture. But it wasn't like elevating himself.
No, I think it was less selfish like for himself, and less like he's selfishly and being inconsiderate and not thinking about the consequences it's going to have on others.
Yeah, that's fair. I suppose that works more.
Sort of, and I guess maybe it was she's thinking, oh, you're so selfish because you put yourself in danger for a story.
I'm thinking he took her content from her computer. He took that. Right. That was kind of the main thing.
That's a crappy thing to do, obviously. But I don't think
he's a journalist. She should know.
Well,
she should be prepared for things like that.
Yeah.
Don't get on my computer to get this information, but here's my password.
Right.
Oh no, don't do it.
And here's my computer.
Whoops, left my computer unlocked
on the kitchen table. Yeah, that's weird.
I know you're trying to crack this case, but don't do it. Not now. No, I'm gonna turn away, and you better not do. Oh,
you did. Hey! Now I'm gonna be mad at you for doing the thing that we knew you were going to do, and which I enabled you to do.
How dare!
How dare!
So anyway, Venom 2, Big Red Guy. That's the subtitle, actually, in Russian.
2,
Big Red Guy.
Venom. I mean, I don't know that
spoiler free then spoilers.
Spoiler free first.
I was trying to get something.
We say spoiler free that we haven't already kind of talked about, because we kind of talked about stuff that's related to both of the movies. So I don't know what else we can say that's spoiler free.
I mean, I feel like you can talk a bit more. I mean, we can at least talk about characters, less plot, more characters. Like, I mean, the characters introduced, and here we had Shriek and Carnage. Those are the two main ones. We had the detective, who was fine. I wasn't sure. For me, Carnage,
Was he in the
I thought
first
was
one?
cool. Carnage was the detective, but I
No.
know, obviously, we saw Carnage in like a mid-credit scene at the end of the first one as Cletus Cassidy. I thought Woody Harrelson did a good job with what he had. I thought I like Woody Harrelson anyway. I think he's a very fun actor. So with what he was given, I thought it was fun. I know it was a PG-13 film, but I still think Carnage could have been scarier than he was. Carnage didn't, while he looked cool, he didn't necessarily scare me, whereas in the comics, he's sort of terrifying. Also, this is just a minor thing, but I personally think he would have been even scarier if he had had a higher voice. He sort of had like a lower growl like Venom, but if he had had like a higher pitched voice, like almost like a bunch of other voices too, kind of talk when he was talking, I think he'd be much scarier. And in the comics, that's sort of how I imagine him when I am reading the comics. So here it's like, oh, he's definitely scary, and there are scenes where you sort of see that, in with PG-13 conditions, of course. But
Right.
yeah, I feel like he could have been scarier, and I could have been more terrified and been more excited to see Venom take him down. So I don't know.
I feel like that the voice thing you're talking about is like, Carnage has actually been adapted a lot in like a couple other like different Marvel things, and it's always sort of like that. It's kind of the way you go with it, but I kind of didn't mind it or minded it. I kind of didn't mind it. I in terms of in this we didn't talk about this in Venom, but I would say like character design wise, it's a big improvement. Venom, like I guess the model for Venom himself isn't like hasn't changed much, but Carnage is straight off the page. Of course, it's
I definitely think he looked the part for sure. I don't have a complaint about that or Venom, aside from the fact that Venom doesn't have the Spider-Man logo on the front. That's the only thing which might change.
Talk about in the spoiler section.
Yes.
But anyway, the design, how the characters look, that was not a problem. Venom was an improvement over Spider-Man 3 infinitely. He didn't look skinny anymore. He definitely looked bulked up like in the comics. And Carnage, I thought, looked great. It was just he had a lower voice, and so it's like if they had changed Carnage a bit to distinguish him from Venom, as far as how they sounded, I thought it would have been interesting. But I thought they sounded too similar.
I get you. I mean, it also probably. Oh, sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
Well, having them have the same voice only serves to enhance the natural Marvel movie problem. Which I know this isn't an MCU movie, but it is still a Marvel movie. And the Marvel movie problem is person with powers fighting bad guy with identical powers, which is exactly what we have here, right? But both of these movies are person with powers fighting fighting evil version of himself.
But Joe, that's a red one.
Yes, I know.
It's a red one.
It's also the case with all of the MCU movies. Iron Man is wearing the red and gold suit, and he's fighting
Obadiah Stane.
Obadiah Stane. I think Ironmonger is the name of the suit name.
Okay.
But it's like a color swap. It's a palette swap version.
Fighting the dude who cut his hair.
Yeah, and it's the same thing in like Black Panther. They're fighting two people with the same powers are fighting each other, and they have different colored suits, and all of these are the same person fighting themselves, basically. But
sure.
And so having anything to distinguish Carnage from Venom would have been better. And even if it's just like having it be a different voice, so it doesn't sound, it's not two deep, growly voices at each other as they're beating each other up.
Right.
Yeah, and that probably would have been the biggest thing to distinguish him because, I mean, they don't really do much. Again, it's like, oh, that's a red one. That's literally the only thing different. Oh, he does hand size. That's just like the comics. But then it's just literally like, oh, this is the, they're trying to present, oh, this is the evil Venom. He took over the serial killer. But then you got Venom hopping from body to body, killing an untold amount of just random San Franciscoans. It's just like, okay, it's like, but he's an anti-hero.
We moved into the spoiler territory here.
Yeah, I thought we had.
Okay.
So yeah, Venom and Eddie break up, which is what they're presenting it as, which is, I don't know, that was weird.
Yeah, well, it's very much a It's
I
an
get it.
action comedy, and it's very much the Odd Couple. Like
Yeah.
the movie, the relationship between Eddie and Venom is the Odd Couple. That's what they are. Except that it's the Odd Couple, except if the wacky, goofy roommate also was a black goo monster that could just throw things out the window.
So it's like Mork and Mindy, aliens.
Yeah, sure.
Throwback for you who know what Mork and Mindy is. When I say throwback, I didn't watch it, but Robin Williams, look it up, kids.
Well, I mean, I thought the bickering and all that. I mean, again, I love the banter between Eddie and the symbiote. I think it's hilarious and a lot of fun, and really is just such a highlight. And it's so fun. The only thing I didn't like about it is I feel like it might just be me not remembering the first film well. Is at the end, it's sort of like Eddie and Venom sort of agree. It's like, yeah, we're going to take on bad guys. You can eat their heads and all that. And now it's like Eddie's changed his mind. It's like, yeah, you can't eat human brains anymore. Only chickens and chocolate.
They do have a throwaway line that I caught about why that's the case, and it's because a bunch of people kept turning up without their heads, and the FBI were investigating, and so Eddie was one of the suspects. And they have a throwaway line about that at the start of the movie, and that's why they're not eating heads anymore.
Okay.
So they do actually address that.
A pretty good reason.
Yes.
Okay.
You win this time, Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage.
I couldn't remember if they mentioned that. I knew they were investigating into Eddie, but I figured that was because of events from the first film, not because they'd caught too many headless corpses around.
Well, I think there's
a bit of both.
They're investigating
some overlap,
and also there's this going on, and it's like too many things. And so
Gotcha.
Eddie's the cautious one, and Venom just doesn't care because Venom's perspective is, all right, if they come after me, I'll just eat them too.
Yeah.
Which, like, you even see that in that first scene with the police officer where Venom is about to eat the police officer in the police station, and then they have to argue with each other in the woman's bathroom. Which is like another one of those just ridiculous, over the top nonsense of him fighting with himself, and the poor woman in the stall like, what's going on? Why is this
one of the schizophrenics got out? Not again.
not again. Yeah.
Ooh, speaking of that, I will give them a little commendation here, which it might have been Andy Serkis who did it, or it might have been somebody else who did it, but I like the fact that the Venom head comes out. Of course, it's it's goofy. It's like, oh, there's a floating alien head, Nick. Well, not floating, but there's an alien head coming out of him. But just having the visual there of Venom talking to Eddie, it's like that works. It works a little better than Mystery Science Theater 3000 when he's just in his head.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, I think they use both very well. Like when he's just in his head, it's you sort of get it's not a great example, almost like Ratatouille vibes, where it's like he's controlling him and he can't let other people know.
Yeah. Yep.
And something Joseph, I was talking with Joe a little bit about, is the more I think about these Venom films, is I think the first Venom, a lot of it makes for a very good pilot, like for a start of like a TV show if they were going to do it on Fox or CBS or something like that. And then like I would totally be down for seeing 40-minute episodes of like, a 15, 20 minute or 15, 20 episode season where you have them doing a lot of stuff they did within like the first half an hour, where it's like Venom's helping him solve crimes and different cases for different people in these, the maximum security prison or whatever. And just even like a show to take place, if they wanted to, in between 1 and 2, just so we can get the relationship to develop and see that fun dynamic. And I'm just thinking in a similar vein of something like, I don't know if you guys watch Psych or Limitless, but the whole idea of you have these people who are really good at private investigating. The people who are the supposed professionals don't know why they're so good, and they have to keep that secret hidden and balance their life and all that while they're doing it. I think it would have been a great show idea, and I feel like it would have been pulled off better as that than them trying to do a feature-length film. But
Jack, we need to pause right now and send that pitch to Marvel. You've struck gold.
Well, what they could have done, they could have had the season be the mid-season finale is Eddie has just caught Cletus Cassidy, the serial killer,
Yeah.
and getting us into prison, and he's like doing an interview with him, and Cletus bites his finger, and that starts the Carnage thing.
Right.
And then throughout that'd be the mid-season finale, and then throughout the second half of the season, you keep seeing these cutaways to Cletus, like his powers are developing, and Carnage is growing inside of him, and people at the prison are trying to figure out what's going on as he's killing people.
Yeah.
As Eddie is dealing with some kind of either there's a few more episodes that are like investigation, but also there's episodes of dealing into the relationship of the characters until finally they get called back to the prison for some reason and they find out about Carnage, and then the last three episodes are the fight against Carnage. But that would have been maybe actually a really good TV show.
Oh, I love that idea. I love that whole concept too. And it's thinking about that and then watching something like Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I keep thinking it's like they're pulling scenes from different episodes, and it's like, I don't know, I'm not the best when it comes to anime terminology, but it's like, I want to say for a lot of anime shows, either halfway through the season or at the end before season 2 comes out, they release this thing called like an OVA that's sort of like a summary of a lot of the previous episodes. And so it almost, Let There Be Carnage almost felt like that, where it's a lot of these select scenes here and there of mayhem or dialogue and all that it's like, I feel like would have fit better if they had fleshed out these characters more. And then we got that sort of finale at the end, like we're talking about.
You know why you feel that way? Because there was no second act to this movie. Or there were two acts to the movie, the first and the third. And the first act is trying to figure out what's going on with Cletus Cassidy. And then they figure out what's going on with him, and then by that point he's already Carnage. And then the third act is the fighting in the building up to the fight in the cathedral, and then the fight in the cathedral. But normally in an action movie, you have a second act, which is where the two characters fight, and the hero loses, and he has to regroup and figure out what they're going to do, and then they come back having learned something, and they're stronger. And we don't have that fight.
Don't get
we don't have the
But
second
Carnage went off. But Venom went off and partied, bro.
Right, but that's
super
like
cool.
a weird intermediate thing that's like we need a reason for there to be tension in the third act, and we don't have the tension of them having lost a fight. So this is how we artificially create tension, by having Venom leave.
Yeah.
I think there's also, like, speaking of creating tension, there's literally just a scene where it's like, all right, how do we take this subplot of Cletus breaking out his girlfriend and reel it on back to the rest of the movie? It's like, all right, you kidnap the cop, I'll kidnap Eddie Brock, and then we kill the Venom symbiote. They're like got a little pep talk. It's like, okay, yeah, so this is where it's going.
It's like no, what were you gonna say?
No, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's like Carnage and Shriek started doing their own thing to realize, oh, we've gotten too far away from the Marvel movie set. We have to bring them to our location so we can finish.
It's like some cruddy video game. They're trying to leave San Francisco. They just keep hitting the wall. It's like, wait a minute.
No, you have to finish this quest first.
That's right.
Finish the quest, and then you get to unlock the open world. Which actually is kind of what happens, because Venom and Eddie just leave San Francisco at the end of the movie, right? They've unlocked the open world.
Pretty much.
I do think, we'll have the second deep thought with Joe, which is where I try to give meaning to the
deep thought.
Try to give meaning to the second movie, because the movie is basically, it actually is this isn't even like a thing that is a stretch. The movie is just a perfect representation of the conflict between the persona and the shadow in psychology. So Eddie Brock is the persona. He's the person who has to act normally in society. He's the okay face that you present to the world. And Venom, the symbiote, is the shadow. He's all of the dark desires that you have that you're not supposed to reveal to the world. All the things that you want to do but you can't do because you have to live in polite society. He just is all of those desires, and the two are in conflict, because Eddie Brock is, we have to do this stuff, we have to behave in a certain way because we live in a society, and it has rules, and we have to behave a certain way. And
How about another
I
joke,
want to go eat
Cletus?
heads, and I want to go punch people, and I want to just be chaos and nonsense and to have fun, and that's the two of them are coming into conflict, and that just is what's happening. And the end of the movie is the persona and the shadow figuring out how to work together to accomplish something. But so that just is what's happening in the movie. The stretch is when I interpret that onto Cletus Cassidy and say what's happening like between the two different symbiote pairs, because Cletus starts off as he already just is his shadow because he's a serial killer. Like a serial killer is fully embodied shadow. It's just all of the stuff that you're not supposed to do just happening. So Cletus basically splits into the symbiote is the shadow, and Cletus is like the persona because he wants to go get married, which is like, okay, why does a serial killer want to get married? And it's because he's the normal quote unquote version. And like they're splitting and they're becoming less and less coordinated and less working together, to the point where that is how the Venom ends up winning, is because because Cletus and Carnage are working against each other, so Venom's able to win. But on the flip side, Eddie Brock and Venom are learning how to work together until they fully integrate into one person. So that is the deep thought. That's like, I don't think they did this on purpose. The persona shadow thing is just there, but like this like parallel intersecting development is an accident, I think. But I think it's neat.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that earlier you were talking about like how none of these films are Oscar worthy, but I feel like Deep Thoughts' Joe is you trying to convince all of us that these films are Oscar worthy.
That's it.
The ideas are great. It's just the execution. There's a lot. The TV show, all these different things that could be done with the fact that someone is being taken over by something that is either directly opposite to them or feeds into their own like deep dark desires.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no, let's not do that. Let's have Woody Harrelson riding around in a hot rod and hacking a computer with a piece of slime.
Yes.
And I don't want to hear any comic nerd, and I'm one of them, but I don't want to hear any comic nerds saying he did it in the comics. I don't care. It's dumb.
It doesn't make any sense. How does a goo monster just hack a computer? What?
Millions of years of hive mind knowledge.
Okay.
Apparently.
That doesn't even make any sense because Carnage isn't like part of the hive mind. He's a tiny chunk.
He's baby.
Yeah, he is baby. He is baby Venom.
Cut that part out, please. I regret saying that.
No.
Don't actually. It's gold. There it is. My shadow and my what was it again? Are fighting.
Persona.
There it is. Yeah.
Your persona and shadow.
Make the bad joke. No, don't do it.
One thing that's interesting, just to give a shout out to a side character here. I can't even remember his name.
Dan.
To a side character. Dan. Yes, Dan. What's the girlfriend's name? I totally forget her name.
It's Anne and Dan.
Yes.
Let's go with Anne and Dan. That's perfect. Yes. So Dan in particular, we'll go with Annie. Sure. So both Dan in the first film and the second, I think it's very interesting because anytime in like all the typical films when it comes to relationships with characters and romantic involvement, you're always rooting for them to leave whoever is not the main character, the female protagonist, and get back with the male protagonist. But in this film, you actually, each film, they make you root for Dan more and more. And at the end of this, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally okay if she never gets back together with Eddie. I'm totally fine with that because Dan is great for her. Yes. He's like such a great guy. You can't not like Dan.
He's not like a nice guy, like the stereo, like the bad stereotype.
He's a nice guy, not a.
He's actually a decent person.
Right.
He's just a decent person who's just trying. Like he's fully willing to help his current girlfriend and then fiance. He's fully willing to help his fiance's ex-boyfriend not die.
Yeah.
Multiple times, risking his own life. Like, there's no benefit to this for him. He's being a decent person helping someone out in need.
I mean, even an alien symbiote at the end of the second film even realizes that Dan's great.
Yes.
So I thought that was a nice take on the whole romantic relationship dynamic that you do not get a lot in films. It's like, no, the guy that he's sort of the sidekick who's not the main guy, we actually like him, and you realize, no, she's actually better with him.
Yeah.
So.
Well, again, when your protagonist is, in the first movie, like super sweaty, like hyperventilating crazy man, and then in the second one, he's got the worst codependency problem known to man. Then
when you're comparing something to trash, anything looks better, right?
Yeah. Those two really need counseling.
Exactly.
Also, Yeah, I will give the I guess probably the costume designers and the makeup artist. I don't know who needs to get credit for this, but
Mm-hmm.
they made Eddie Brock look like absolute trash, and then he got infected. They made Tom Hardy look like absolute trash,
Right.
and then he gets infected with a symbiote. Like he
I
looks
like I like how they brought that over to the first part of the sequel, which again, in terms of like pacing stuff, we oh god, don't even bring up the word pacing in this movie or the other one. It's like, whoa, what's that? 10 minutes in and he's already got his fame back, yet he still lives in that cruddy apartment with the holes torn out of the wall and stuff. But hey, at least he's got a new bike
and a $3,000 TV that he
Nope, and a $3,000 TV.
twice. Was that a product placement? Because I didn't see the logo for the TV.
I didn't either. So if it was a product
there was a
placement, it
few
wasn't a very
other,
clear one.
well, there was a few other ones.
Okay.
On the TV, there was a product placement for and I looked it up, a future, what is it, Sony exclusive video game. So my score, which we'll find out at the end, has gone down by 3 points because of that.
Okay. because of Sony exclusive product placement?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we ready to jump into that mid-credit scene?
Oh,
I think we got it. I'd say
Which
we got a
was
little
like-
more.
We have a little more?
Or at least I got a little more.
Okay.
Please, by all means.
Performances. Woody Harrelson, very cool. Like the fact that they got rid of that rat's nest of a wig. It was in fact partially Woody Harrelson who said, yeah, no one likes this wig. Can we just get rid of it? And they're just like, okay, yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, he no
And
longer
then-
looks like Wendy from Wendy's. So
No.
Yep.
You don't understand. I went crazy and I put my hair in pigtails.
Well, it looks stupid, so cut it off.
yes.
And what is it? Shriek or Francis or whatever. Turns out she was, and what is it? The two people I went to see this movie with both said, like within about a minute of each other at the end of the movie while the credits were going, it's like, you know, that lady, that looks a lot like what is it? Calypso or like Tia Dom from Pirates of the Caribbean. And it's like, yeah, that's because it is.
That's funny. I did not make that connection.
That blew everyone's mind. That was the best thing about that movie for everyone that went to go see it.
I
recognized her. What were you saying?
I recognize. I saw that like the first scene, and I was like, wait a minute, is that Calypso?
No,
why is Calypso suddenly shrieking at people? What's going on?
I recognize her because she plays Moneypenny in the new Bond movies. Who's like a side character who's a friend to Bond. So I've been watching those recently. So that was just the first thing that came to my mind. I didn't even think Calypso, but now that I recognize that, I can't unsee it. That's so funny.
It's all connected, you see.
I mean, both of those characters kind of, which is understandable because of the position they're in. They both have kind of a grungy sort of look. Like Tia Dalma is very much like, you know, dreadlocks and it gives off this disgusting kind of.
Neither of these people have seen a bath.
Yes.
The only difference is,
which is understandable because one of
Shriek has
them
better dental care.
Yeah, one of them is a witch that lives in a shack on an island, on a deserted island, and the other one has been locked in prison for like 20 years. So it's understandable that they both kind of have a similar
aesthetic
presentation. As aesthetic, we can call it that. Sure.
People love the word aesthetic now, but that's the actual proper use of it.
That actually is the proper use of the word aesthetic. So we'll use it correctly because we can. We do it because we can.
There you go.
That's not a reference to anything important.
I got a feeling it is, but it's too much of a Joe topic for us to know.
That's a topic for another time. All right,
Good question for another time.
Question for another. Do we want to move into the mid-credit scene?
I'm ready if you guys are.
Let's do it. Pull the Band-Aid off.
So Spider-Man.
Yep, that's it.
Spider-Man. That's all we need to. Apparently, Venom is now in the MCU, but Venom and Eddie Brock, those two characters, have been moved into the MCU. Not that Venom's universe is the same universe as the MCU.
No dimensional
Right,
merge.
exactly,
Just
yeah.
placement.
Like,
It's had probably to do with the whole multiverse thing.
Yeah.
Whether or not other characters from Venom's world have been moved to the MCU, we don't know. But at least, if nothing else, we know that in that end credit scene, he's watching this Spanish drama, having a great time. He's about to talk with Eddie and show him some information about like what the symbiote has seen, Eddie's Venom symbiote has seen. And right before he does that, they're transported to the same hotel room, just in the MCU, the official Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so that's very cool. And we get to see J. Jonah Jameson on the screen. I think probably doing the same announcement that he did at the end of Far From Home, where they announced that Spider-Man's responsible for killing Mysterio and all of that. So that was insane because that's something people theorized about for a long time with this whole the Sony Disney deals and all that. It was always speculation, but it was never official. Mm-hmm. And now it's official that if not in No Way Home, we are going to see Venom see Spider-Man at some point. So that's very exciting.
Unless it's the world's biggest tease.
Well,
that'd just be cruel.
There's going to be some kind of fight, some kind of crossover between the two characters, because if they do it right, everyone wants to see it if it's done right, and it is a redemption of the movie that we don't talk about in the Spider-Man trilogy.
The Thoid one.
If I have to make a preference, I would say that if we're going to see Venom, I would definitely, my first choice would be for him to be in something other than No Way Home. But if he's going to be in No Way Home, I want it to be like a brief cameo, or even, I mean, funny enough, I'd prefer to be a mid-credit scene teasing what we see next with them, because they've already announced so many characters for No Way Home, so many old faces, new faces, and all that, and ideas for No Way Home, that I feel like if they try to push anything else, I mean, I still think No Way Home, there's going to be too much as it is, and I'm very worried, to be honest. But Venom on top of that, I think it's just going to be way too much. So if anything, I definitely hope we see Venom in some sort of end credit scene, whether it be the mid or the end credits. I don't really care. But some tease of him, so we are reminded that, yeah, he's coming. But for the sake of John Watts' decent Spider-Man trilogy that has been so far, and so he can complete a decent trilogy that no one's been able to do yet for Spider-Man, I hope they will, emphasize less on trying to shove him in there, and we can focus more on the other fun characters we're going to see. So we'll see.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely agree that a mid-credits sting of some kind is the best way to do it. Or have him have you see Eddie Brock running around in the background trying to get to Spider-Man as a 15-second cut at some point, because you a blink and you miss it kind of moment, and then you move on to the other stuff, and because we've already got Doc Ock, we've already got Green Goblin, we've already got dealing with the multiverse, we've already got Electro, right? Electro confirmed.
Possibly Sandman.
Possibly. We don't. That one's not confirmed, I think. But we've already got 3 villains was what we had in Spider-Man 3, and that was too many.
Yes.
And we've already got 3 villains in Spider-Man 3, or in Spider-Man No Way Home, which is the new Spider-Man 3. So yeah, as much as I enjoy the character of Venom, we all agree, regardless of the quality of the movies, we all enjoy the character of Venom and Eddie Brock.
Yes,
very much.
And I would be 100% down to see Venom Eddie Brock, Venom/Eddie Brock fighting with Peter Parker Spider-Man for some reason.
Yeah, and what would be interesting, well, I was thinking would be interesting is, since he is, I don't know if he's ever going to come back to his main timeline, Venom, but since he's now in the MCU timeline, it's possible that since I think Carnage was technically killed, and Cletus Cassidy was killed in the Venom timeline after Venom bit his head off, we could technically see Cletus Cassidy come back into the MCU and become Carnage in that universe, possibly, since he is alive in that universe. So that's one possible thing they want to do if they could bring him back. I kind of think that was a bad move. I think that was kind of a bad move to kill off Carnage, since he's the only insane symbiote that everybody else knows aside from Venom. And so if they're going to keep doing...
Don't you like Toxin? Toxin? Everyone's... 25th favorite symbiote out of 373.
Not really. No, I have to be honest. Sorry. Maybe next time. But
What a
yeah,
shame.
this what a shame. But yeah,
Sorry to all
so
the Toxin fans out there.
sorry for the toxin hate, but it's true. So yeah, that is a possibility. Not saying they will, and even if they do, I definitely wouldn't want to be something that they do in No Way Home because I feel like they're doing too much as it is. But if they wanted to bring back Carnage, the MCU would probably be a place where they could do that.
Yeah.
I could see him working well in maybe the Deadpool thing they're doing, just because he's one of the gritty characters or something. But I don't know. I feel like them killing him off there is sort of like, oh, well, we got him. Now you can't use him. Ha ha.
Yeah, well, that does
I
seem
feel like the
very-
general audience is like,
Mm.
they've had to be. Well, I say they. It's like, oh, they've had to be eased into the multiverse thing. But it's like, some random person off the street is like, walks in and sees. Again, I know it's like, you don't go see the third movie in a trilogy without at least kind of knowing. But it's like the layman's sort of like, wait a minute, didn't such and such die? Or it's like, oh, I saw the Spider-Man 2 in like 2003. I thought Doc Ock was dead or something. And it's like, I can see a lot of that being said. And so it's like, maybe keeping him dead might be a good idea, even if there's a lot of wasted potential in it. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I think it's time for us to give our ratings on this. What our take was. I guess we'll probably do both ratings. So
Yep.
Sounds like a plan.
So yeah.
So again, just to remind you guys, I use the ironic negative scale. So negative score means it's an ironic enjoyment, not a bad movie, an ironically enjoyed movie. I probably might be the most charitable of the three of us. Venom 1, when I saw it the first time, I gave it a -6, and I maintained that score. Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, I'm going to give a -8. So, which I think is going to be higher than anyone else, but I did.
That's great, right?
Well, technically, wouldn't that mean it's
It is, yeah.
Oh, -8. So you're going to -10. Okay, no, that makes sense. Okay, I got you.
Again, we'll have flowcharts for the. I'm sorry, not
yes.
flowcharts. U-chart for the next episode.
Yeah.
If I had to do my rating, I think what I did originally was I usually do like how I do ratings. I usually do like 5-star scales, but if we're going like on a 10-star scale with no points, it's just solid numbers. I'd probably give it the first film. I want to say for enjoyment, I gave it like a 7. I had a lot of fun with that first film, just because of how surprised I was that I liked it and wanted to see more of his character because I came in with such low expectations. And then watching Let There Be Carnage, I would probably give that. I think after my initial watch, I gave it a 6, but it might be closer to a 5 the more I'm thinking about it. So that's probably my take.
That's pretty good. I'd say probably the first Venom, straight up 4 out of 10 on like a critical scale, but it's I'm hesitating to say fun. I mean, it's interesting. Both of these movies can be summed up by interesting, or even not even interesting, not even execution wise. You could again look at all these ideas and it's like, that would have been cool, or that would have been cool, but what we get is, I mean, you can laugh at it with your buddies, and that's got some merit in it for just
if you like your buddies
for dumb fun. Yeah, there's worse movies you could force your friends to watch. And Venom 2 is all that amplified. At least they know what it is now. So that means that makes it that's a 4 out of 10. First one's a 3 out of 10. And both can be enjoyed given a lax enough atmosphere. So do with that what you will.
Alrighty. Well, there you go. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this episode.
The first episode of Spooky Month Jamboree.
Spooky Month
That's
Jamboree.
right.
We doing we gonna reveal what we're doing for next week?
Yes, yes. Do the thing. Do the.
Well, next week, I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember. Are we doing like everybody talks about what they're into? Or are we doing maybe some Mystery Machine content?
I thought we were gonna do some Ruby Ruby Roo.
Oh yeah, that's the stuff. The original.
Yeah,
That's right.
The
Scooby Doo,
original?
Where Are You? From the late '60s.
So prepare yourself for some flower vans and some repeated running segments.
yes. In the same
In a
music
good way, of
played
course.
over and over again.
Alrighty. That'll be fun. So yeah, please all tune in for that. Well, thank you all so much for listening. Well, if you did listen, we appreciate you. And if not, it's okay because you didn't miss anything.
Yep. Go back to work.
Alrighty. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.